You are listening to The Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. So yesterday they came back with the Justice Department, their version of the affidavit with the redactions that they chose, and it was released and everything. And it came out, and of course, there really was nothing in there. There was nothing new. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then I wake up this morning, and I'm sure you all have seen this story. It's so obvious what this story is. Let me just read the headline, that Kathy and I will talk about it a little bit. I am a victim. Ukrainian truck driver's daughter who posed as Rothschild heiress to infiltrate Mar-A-Lago and meet Trump says she's innocent as FBI probe her to ties to Russian organized crime. So I'm not going to read through the whole story of this lady, and there's a lot of stories about her all over the place. So this Ukrainian woman posing this Rothschild got into Mar-A-Lago, and they're talking about a breach, and as this goes on, they're talking about, well, all these classified documents were there, and now this. Does it strike anyone else as a little too coincidental that here we have Ukraine again, right?
Yeah, I remember when Don Jr. met with the adoption person and that whole setup that happened, and
That's
him
right.
and Jared
During
met with
campaign.
this woman. And
For 10 seconds.
Exactly, and they made a whole big thing about it. Same thing.
Yeah.
It's all a setup.
And Ukraine, look the impeachment over Ukraine, right, with that phone call with Zelensky. Colonel Vindman is originally from the Ukraine.
Yeah, all roads lead to the Ukraine.
You know, who's running this country? Is it China or Ukraine? I don't know who's. But you know, this story here about this Ukrainian woman. The reason this story is out there, it's obvious, but I'll say it just in case there could be Democrats listening. They want to create the illusion that Mar-a-Lago is not a secure location, and there were all these classified documents. Now, here's the thing: Mar-a-Lago is a fortress. It's a fortress, right? Literally, it's a fortress. President Trump, where he lives there, is not where everybody else is, all right? The guests that go there for events and the members don't have access to the Trump area. That's a whole nother walled-off area on top of the fact that there's Secret Service protection around the whole place. But this is this narrative that they're trying to get going, that President Trump is dangerous and he has all these documents. And it's not a coincidence. Why does she have to be from Ukraine? Couldn't be from any other place?
I think what happened is they did this raid. They found nothing. And now they're trying to jam him up with this whole thing with archives and or that maybe that was their plan all along, because Joe Biden, they said, did meet with this archive lady a couple months ago, and that, you know, it was revealed that with emails and stuff that he was in on this. So maybe this was their plan all along to get him this way. They're thinking like Al Capone, like, well, let's think outside the box and all this stuff. And then they just happened to have this story coming out in the Daily Mail all day yesterday. Like you said, that this woman who, you know, like she's a spy and she was in Mar-a-Lago and, you know, it's dangerous because Trump had these documents. It's not a coincidence. It's a setup.
Yeah. And today I did something I've not done in years. I mean, I don't know when the last time I did this was. I mean, this is something I don't know what I was thinking. This morning, I went to Wawa to get gas, and I went inside the convenience store to get a thing to drink, and I picked up today's edition of the New York Times, and I read it. And it still says.
I remember the last time you bought a newspaper.
The last time I bought a newspaper, I know, and the last time I bought a New York Times, and it does say here all the news that's fit to print right on the. And it's real newspaper. They only had one copy of the New York Times in the newspaper rack because people don't buy newspapers anymore. I think the newspapers are just there for like false subscription numbers, like that counts as but I bought it, or circulation numbers, and I read it. And if you get your news from the newspapers, you would think Donald Trump was the most terrible person. I mean, there's two articles here. Let me read some of them. On the headline, this is today's New York Times. U.S. feared Trump files put spies at risk, okay? And this is
oh my goodness.
This is the article that's on the right side of the front page. Redacted affidavit sheds light on search of Mar-a-Lago. The Justice Department's search of former President this is in the New York Times I'm reading from. The Justice Department's search of former President Donald Trump's Florida home was spurred by the discovery that he had held onto a trove of highly classified material that included documents related to the use of clandestine human sources in intelligence gathering, according to a redacted version of the affidavit used to obtain the search warrant. The portions of the affidavit made public on Friday describe the Justice Department's months-long push to recover sensitive materials taken from the White House by a former president who viewed state documents as his private property. And now it goes on. So, but this thing here, the documents were related to the use of clandestine human sources. So spies or informants that we have in sensitive places around the world are listed on this. Now, this is what Biden did in Afghanistan. When they pulled out of Afghanistan with no notice, they left behind all the payroll records of every Afghan that had worked for the United States in any capacity for the last 20 years.
That was okay.
And they're all probably all dead. Yeah. And the ones that aren't dead are probably in hiding right now in Afghanistan.
Yeah, he just left them there.
So that actually really happened, right?
Yeah, he left
a year
them there
ago.
With a list.
Yeah, the payroll
where
records.
To find them.
And the payroll records have their addresses and everything.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
And we haven't heard anything about that.
Now, there's stuff about these classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. You know, Mar-a-Lago is also like a resort where people have events, private events that aren't members. Like sometimes there's weddings, sometimes there's get-togethers and things like this. If Donald Trump were like going to, like somebody's getting married at Mar-a-Lago, right? And they're in the ballroom and it's the wedding reception. And sometimes you'll see online, President Trump will go to a wedding reception. He'll walk through and take pictures. Now, if he went to a wedding reception at Mar-a-Lago and got up on the stage and started reading classified documents, then I could say, you know what, he's out of control there. But all this stuff that he had was locked in a closet with a lock that the feds gave him last time they were there months ago.
They keep saying, they even said on the news the other day that it was in the basement. There is no basement at Mar-a-Lago. There is no basement in South Florida. You cannot have a basement here. I even found the blueprints of Mar-a-Lago, and there is no basement. Now, they might have a room. And so, you know, somebody said they have bunkers. The bunkers are above ground. They're hidden in the hedges. But there is no basement. Palm Beach is on coral. It's an
island.
And you cannot build a basement through that. And we are literally at 3 feet above sea level. Yeah. There are no basements south of Ocala. Even that is even a stretch.
What they do sometimes.
But they keep saying it's in the basement. There's no basement here.
What they do sometimes is they build a building on the ground and then they put dirt around it. Like, for example, the example I give all the time is Walt Disney World. Now, a lot of you may have heard that Walt Disney World has an underground area beneath the park. That's not really true. When you go to Walt Disney World and you're riding the rides or you're on Main Street USA, you're on the second floor of a 2-story structure. Right. There's no basement at Disney World. There's a first floor that's been covered up with dirt and then another level. So it's not a basement. Okay.
Right. They built up like a hill because Disney is built
because Florida is a swamp. We're a swamp in Florida.
It's a swamp. So they had to build the park level is actually elevated.
Yeah. So it's the same thing at Mar-a-Lago.
No, they don't even have that though.
No.
They don't even have that. They have no basement. They have no.
I looked up the plans
If you look at the building, which you've been to many times, it is at sea level. Mm-hmm. The building is at sea level. It's not on a hill. There's no basement. So I don't know why they keep saying it's in a basement because they keep saying it because it's to give the impression that it's in some secret place and dark down in some mysterious, basement type thing. No, it's just in a room, which Trump said they gave him 2 locks. He locked it in 2 locks.
Yeah.
He said that is what they told him to do, and that is what he did. So this is going nowhere now. Dershowitz said that they have enough to indict him, but that they won't. I don't agree. I don't know what they have. I don't know how he thinks he knows what they have to indict him. Nobody knows what the documents are, now do they? Does he know?
Alan Dershowitz said they got enough to indict Trump, but they won't because what Hillary did was worse. Hillary was not a president of the United States, okay? And another thing with Hillary was being incredibly reckless. She had Huma Ahmadine with her, who has very questionable connections in the Middle East. And Huma Ahmadine actually had some files she wasn't supposed to have inside of her car, okay? That was like out in public where anybody could break the window and grab. So there was some risks there.
Right.
And some other things going on. President Trump had everything locked up in a room. The government had been in there already, the feds. They gave him a lock. He put the lock on it, and that was it.
Right.
But, here's the deal. It's the same deal with every one of these deals. There's a club of people who believe that they run this country. The Harvard, Yale, Oxford Rhodes Scholar, London School of Economics people. The people that run the government.
The elitist.
Yeah, the people that run the government, and I'm talking about office holders as well as the top bureaucrats, are born into this through their family, through their parents. They get recruited while they're in one of these elite universities, and outsiders are not supposed to rise to the level President Trump did. If you go back through everyone that has been president in our lifetimes and even before, in the there's some older people listening to this show. I don't know what the first president of the oldest listener to our program is, but you go back through all the presidents, all of them have been connected to the political establishment, or like in George Bush's case, he's the worst of the worst. It isn't just a family connection. His father was FBI director, CIA director, all vice president, all this stuff, but they're all connected. You can even go to someone like, I'll give you, Eisenhower. You think Eisenhower, he's not one of these people that was bred his whole life to be, president of the United States. If you, Stephen A. Ambrose wrote a biography of Eisenhower. It was interesting how he became the president. He had been retired, and he was playing golf, and he played golf with big corporate guys from the oil companies and everything. And they said, you should run for president. And he wasn't even a member of a political party. So these corporate guys, the big oil at the time, got Eisenhower to run. All of these people are connected except Donald Trump. And what happened, this connected club, they lost control of the government with Donald Trump, and they just can't let it go.
He wouldn't play ball with them. They tried to get him to play ball right away.
Yeah.
And he would not. And he told them to go,
Yeah.
You know what?
That's right.
And that they've been out to get him ever since.
Yeah, and it's never going to stop. I mean, this is going to go on with Donald Trump for his entire life. And I wonder what's going to happen in his second term in 2024, because he's wise to this now. And they're going to quadruple down. Well, it's a long way. He hasn't even announced yet. And, what I've been wondering, because we know, Eric Trump has talked about this quite a bit, that they have the video inside of Mar-a-Lago when it was ransacked, when they broke in. And I'm wondering when they're going to release that. I'm starting to think releasing the Mar-a-Lago ransacking by the FBI video is going to be the October surprise.
Exactly.
They're going to release that. And usually you don't
That's
have
exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, you usually don't have October surprises in midterm elections. They're usually for presidential elections. But next Saturday night, this would be my dream. I'm not saying President Trump is going to do it like this, but this would be my dream, right? Next weekend, President Trump has a rally in Pennsylvania for Dr. Oz.
Yeah.
And
he does?
Yeah, I would like him to go up on stage and show on the big screen the video from the ransacking of Mar-a-Lago at the rally. I think that would be beautiful.
That would be great.
That would be beautiful.
I did not know he was having a rally in Pennsylvania for Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz needs it.
And it'll be very interesting how he tries to save this campaign. And I'm sure he's had a few conversations with him. And I don't know what Dr. Oz could do to get people to support him, because he just keeps making bad moves. The only thing I think the way they'll play it is he's better than the alternative. And I think that's the only way they have to go with this guy, because he he's just, I think his heart is in the right place. And I do like Dr. Oz, and I think he's definitely a better choice than the Fetterman guy. No doubt about it.
Well, he's a communist.
Well, exactly. Yeah, the Fetterman guy. Dr. Oz, I feel, is friendly with Trump. I feel he's conservative. I think when he was in Hollywood, he pretended to be more liberal because he was in that world and he wanted a show. But I think now that he's out of that world, so to speak, he's more his true beliefs. I feel he is a conservative. Most Muslims are, anyway. I think most Muslims are conservative. But I feel he's just can't shake his past, and he comes across so polished sometimes because he's a TV guy. He doesn't come across genuine, but hopefully Trump can help him turn things around. He needs to definitely get some better advice as far as how he presents himself to the people.
Yeah, he certainly does. Now,
does he even live in Pennsylvania? Is he even living there? I mean, that's a problem.
Too. I know Dr. Oz has a place here in Florida, in Palm Beach.
Doesn't everybody that's rich?
I don't know exactly where he really lives, but that's what it is. Now, I want to take a moment to tell people about Mike Lindell and MyPillow. You guys know what he's gone through. I mean, he's been canceled by Walmart, Bed Bath & Beyond, Kohl's, Home Shopping, QVC, and a whole bunch of other stores. And what's kept Mike Lindell and MyPillow going are you guys out there supporting Mike Lindell and buying these great MyPillow products. Now, they've updated a lot of the specials at MyPillow.com, and some of the specials I was talking about a week ago are no longer available. So when I tell you about these specials, you really need to jump on board and take advantage of them while you can. There's a lot of great specials there, but I'm going to tell you what is the biggest special of all time, and that is the 50% off special, the lowest price ever on the 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper, which Kathy and I have. Whatever special you see at MyPillow.com, you can take advantage of with our promo code KANE at checkout, KANE. But I noticed today they updated a lot of their specials, right? So like I say, some of the ones I've been talking about the last couple weeks are no longer available at those special prices that they were. They've updated them. The 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper is still available for 50% off with our promo code KANE at checkout. So go there and take advantage of that. That 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper, it changed my life. We got it because Kathy was having back pain. After one night, we woke up the next day, Kathy's back pain was gone. It has not returned. And I told you guys, I sleep the whole night through. My alarm wakes me up now. I always woke up before the alarm. No more. The 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper. If you're not getting the night's sleep that you think you should be getting, get your 3-inch MyPillow mattress topper for 50% off at MyPillow.com when you use our promo code KANE at checkout, KANE. It comes in all mattress sizes from twin all the way up to California King and Split King, and every size in between. It makes a great gift for the kids. They need to get a good night's sleep for school, and a great gift for the college kids for the dorm bed. So again, go to MyPillow.com, use our promo code KANE at checkout, KANE, for 50% off the MyPillow mattress topper, all right? Okay, so Joe Rogan had Zuckerberg on the other day, and they were talking about the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop and when all that happened. And, of course, Twitter just totally banned any posting of laptop stories. And what they did on Facebook is dethrottled it, right, where no one saw it. So I want to play a little bit of this exchange with Zuckerberg, with Joe Rogan. But, we were talking about an October surprise for this election. The laptop of Hunter Biden's was Trump's October surprise for the last election. October surprises are an American tradition during presidential elections. And for those of you that are outside the United States, our elections are in November always. So what happens, it's mostly in presidential elections, and it's always Democrats doing this against Republicans. A week or so, sometimes 10 days before an election, they release something that is very, very bad that they've been holding on to sometimes for years, and they release it close to the election.
Because the election is the first Tuesday of November,
yeah, so
right?
they'll release it like 10 days before the election.
Yeah.
So they release it in October, about 2 weeks before the election, so that the person they are trying to damage doesn't have enough time to set the record straight, and
it's fresh in the voters' minds.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's
right
not old.
Right before they vote.
That's why, like, if it's 6 months old, people are like, that's old news.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the ones that I thought was the most devastating was George W. Bush in 2000, the Al Gore campaign. Their October surprise was, and no one knew about this. Many, many years ago, George W. Bush had gotten arrested for drunken driving and was arrested. And of course, because he was with the Bush family, it got fixed.
What about the Gary Hart? When was that picture? Because that destroyed his career. He was the favorite. He was the nominee.
Well, that was a little different. That was a little different because,
and then the picture of him with Donna Rice.
That was
came out.
That was in the that I think that came out during the primaries.
Oh, during the primaries. But he was set to win.
He was the front runner, and that was the end.
Somebody released this photo
of him with a girl on his lap.
Donna Rice on his lap. That's all it was. And it completely
you never
destroyed
saw Gary Hart again. So
there's a movie about that with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. So that's what happens. Okay. Yeah. And Republicans, I don't know of an example of Republicans doing it. That was like this. And of course, Donald Trump had his October surprise, and it was suppressed. So Joe Rogan had Zuckerberg on, and Zuckerberg was talking about what happened at Facebook. And this is really scary stuff. Yeah. Listen to this.
I mean, basically, the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
Basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But basically, a lot of people were still able to share it.
Okay, Joe Rogan sounded like he was sleeping. Okay, there's a lot there. Okay, this thing about how you could still consume it and you could still share it. Here's the thing about that: if you shared it, no one would see it. Even people that are friends with you on Facebook, you could share it and it would tell you it was shared, and it would be on your Facebook page. But your friends wouldn't see it. I don't know how this magic of the internet happens, but that's how it was. And it was dethrottled where people that were posting this was happen. That's what dethrottling is. You post something up there and no one sees it. And that's what they did with that story. And what they did was in a way worse than Twitter. Twitter did an open ban where you couldn't post anything about it. It had it would stop it from actually being posted. What Facebook did was worse. They made it so no one saw what you were posting up there, but you didn't know it. You thought that you shared to all of your friends this story on the laptop. You thought you shared it where your friends could see it, but they couldn't see it. You understand? You guys understand what I mean by that? So that's even sneakier than what they did at Twitter. Twitter, what they did was wrong too, obviously, but at least they were open about what they were doing. Now, this other thing with this FBI team that went to Facebook and said,
and obviously went to Twitter too.
Yeah, and there's some Russian propaganda coming. Who are all of these people to decide that a news story is Russian propaganda and shouldn't be consumed? And who's to say, even if it were Russian propaganda, why should we as Americans not be able to see it and decide for ourselves?
What happened is Joe Biden knew how damaging this laptop would be to him. And he instructed the FBI, this is my opinion, to squash it, basically, to go to the social media guys and tell them, do not run this. And they made up the story that it was Russian propaganda to give them an excuse. They couldn't go to them and say, this is going to make Joe Biden look really bad and his son's a complete scumbag. Can you not share it? So what they had to do was go under the guise of misinformation and say, and of course they were going to go along with it because they're all liberal, and say, this is misinformation, wink, wink. Can you not allow this to spread? Because they knew that it would really affect Joe Biden with his campaigning and all that stuff. They knew it would make him look very bad, and they wanted to suppress it until the election was over. They didn't care what happened after, but they wanted it suppressed just for the election.
This has really got me thinking, okay, to how these things work. If you guys, going back to the Lewinsky affair with Bill Clinton, I know that doesn't seem like a big deal now, but it was at the time the idea that the sitting president of the United States was having sex with a 25-year-old girl who was an intern at the White House inside the Oval Office was a huge story. I mean,
and there were other things going on too with Paula Jones and
but this was
Kathleen Willey.
It was a big deal.
There were multiple stories at the same time.
It was that was
the biggest one. Obviously.
This story was bigger. If you didn't live through it, you don't know. But it was huge. And the way that story came out, we didn't have Facebook and all that stuff then. This was before all that, right? There was no social media back then. But the way that this story got out was the Lewinsky story broke on Drudge, the Drudge Report. And that's what made the Drudge Report famous. But Matt Drudge didn't uncover the story. What had happened was Newsweek reporters had uncovered the Lewinsky story and wrote the story. And the story was not printed by Newsweek. And the Newsweek reporters were told by their editors that they couldn't go to print with the story. So they gave the story to Drudge in secret, and he went with the story. And actually, the original story was President having an affair with a 25-year-old intern. That Newsweek suppressed the story. And when that happened, what was being reported is that the Clintons reached out to Newsweek. And now I'm starting to think it was like this thing with the laptop, that the FBI went to Newsweek and said, you can't run this story, and got them to suppress the story about Monica Lewinsky because they're doing it now.
But that story was not suppressed.
No, it was. No.
No, but I'm saying it's amazing.
No, Kathy, you're wrong. It was. No. Before, the internet news didn't really exist until the Lewinsky story. The news was still in newspapers and magazines and on TV. We didn't have – the internet was brand new. And Matt Drudge, when he had that story, was the first major news story ever broken on the internet. They didn't see the internet as a place to go for news yet. Yeah. And they suppressed it from Newsweek, thinking, well, that'll be the end of it. There's nowhere else to run the story. They didn't realize about the internet then.
Yeah, because it exploded.
So I'm wondering, how many times has the government done with stories that were damaging to who they wanted
all the time
to, like they did with this laptop story?
Especially if they're liberals, all the time. I don't think conservatives could get that to happen because the media is not on their side. But the liberals, the media is on their side. 95% of the media is liberal, and they will do whatever they're told to do.
It's insane.
And stories that happens all the time.
No, it's crazy, and
and stories are pushed for effect too.
And
certain
the stories
are pushed for an effect, and certain stories are suppressed. That's what the media does.
Well,
that's nothing new for sure.
Show with Joe Rogan and Zuckerberg. Obviously, I know about it. Some of you guys know about it. A lot of people listen to Joe Rogan. But do you notice that the media really haven't picked up on this story? That this Zuckerberg is just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, it's kind of matter of fact.
I'm shocked he even said it, to be honest.
Isn't it weird that he said it? Yeah.
Well, Bill Maher attacked him and said that, that doing that was totally wrong, but that's the way it is. But I was really surprised Zuckerberg even said that.
Yeah, I am
quite
too.
A revelation.
I am too. And shame on the media. The media should be going to Joe Rogan and Zuckerberg and start putting pressure on, well, wait a minute. Who were these people from the FBI that went to Facebook? Is there some special team who sent them there? How did this happen? No. How did they even have the connection to get to the right person, to get it suppressed on both platforms, Twitter and Facebook, on a dime? It was instant, if you remember. Remember, New York Post had the story, and it was within minutes that this happened.
Well, and who gave the FBI the order? Was it Did it come from Joe Biden's
Well, Biden
campaign?
wasn't in office then.
No, but did it come from his campaign?
Maybe they didn't have to. Maybe it's just an understood thing because they're out to screw Trump.
Or were they totally working alone?
Yeah.
As their own entity?
Exactly. Now, listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, there's a lot more to talk about. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Have you tried and tried to achieve your financial goals, but haven't quite gotten there? Don't worry, you're not alone. You just need the right motivation. And that's what you will find on the podcast, Investing Uncensored, with host Andre Stewart. Investing Uncensored brings listeners a candid and unfiltered glimpse into the real life of professionals from all industries, from pro athletes, tech founders, real estate moguls, and entertainers, who give tips on how they became financially independent or wealthy by investing. Whether it was mentally, physically, or monetarily, they invested to get where they are today, and share with Andre Stewart what started them on their journey to becoming an entrepreneur or choosing a particular career path as their main source of income. Andre Stewart is an experienced and successful investment banker who has advised venture capital firms and some of the largest tech startups in the world, and he shares his experience and expertise with his listeners. Add Investing Uncensored with host Andre Stewart to your podcast playlist, available on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and where you get your podcasts. All of us are looking for ways to make our kitchen space more efficient, as well as aesthetically pleasing. If you're wanting to find a great way to display all the fruit or veggies you love to eat, check out the Zarami Fruit Hammock for the kitchen on Amazon. It's made out of cotton with wood sticks. It's a great way to store and display colorful and delicious produce in your kitchen. It fits perfectly under the kitchen cabinet, and it comes with 4 hooks. It's very easy to install and ready to hang in just seconds. This basket can hold lots of food and looks great no matter what your style. Order yours today on Amazon. Go to Amazon.com and search Zarami Fruit Hammock. That's Zarami. Zarami Fruit Hammock on Amazon. Are your mornings ready for an upgrade? The Morning Upgrade Podcast with Ryan Cote is all about personal development. By having a strong morning routine, you can change your life for the better. In fact, the right morning can be the catalyst to success and growth in your life. It's all about investing in yourself and personal growth in the right direction, making positive changes in your morning routine to get the results in life that you want. Striving to be a better version of yourself is a goal that never should end. We all need to work on improving ourselves. Being our best selves impacts everyone around us, and it starts with the right attitude and the right morning routine. Add the Morning Upgrade Podcast to your podcast playlist, available on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcast player, and morningupgrade.com. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter, the Morning Upgrade Podcast with Ryan Cote.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We had a big story here in Florida, too, to wake up to today. This is amazing. Governor Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, our great governor here in Florida, suspended 4 school board members for incompetence and neglect of duty in response to the Parkland shooting. And they had not a lot of details. It was a grand jury, so we don't have all the details yet. But what they had found was that they had misused the school security money, which was tens and tens of millions of dollars, you know.
Wow.
So that was
misused it how?
Well, they didn't use it on security. They used it on other things.
Was this money was this money allocated to them before the shooting?
Yeah, that they didn't use on
to protect the kids.
Yeah, they used it on other things.
This is like people that don't live here might not understand this, but Broward County has a long history of corruption, especially with the school board. This is, I remember when you were on the diversity committee, and this was back in like the early 2000s maybe, and you and Steve went to high schools. I think you went to your old high school that were like not in the nicest neighborhoods, and they had books that were 20, 30 years old that were ripped, and there were holes in the ceilings, and money had been allocated to these schools, never used. Who knows where that money went? There is corruption. Anywhere there's money, there's corruption.
Yeah.
But Broward County has a long history. And when this happened, this unfortunate thing at Parkland, there were so many stories here locally that you might not have seen in the national news of how many balls that were dropped, how many red flags that were waved in this whole incident, and how but the media wanted to blame the guns. That's not what happened here. Like you said here, there was millions of dollars that was supposed to be used to protect these kids. This must be happening everywhere because I just don't see a lot of schools making any changes. Are they all getting money that they're not using?
This story with, it's not just this, it's everywhere. All the school boards are corrupt because they have so much. They have so much money
because they're all liberals. That's
why.
I
mean, look what happened in Loudoun County. Why do you think they treat the parents like the enemy? Because
and they're all
corrupt.
liberal school boards.
But Ron DeSantis, the story with Ron DeSantis is in all the papers. It was even in the New York Times today when I read it. They're all Democrats, and he replaced them with Republicans. And this is an amazing thing that happened.
That is amazing.
Last week in our primaries, we had a whole bunch of school board races throughout the state of Florida, and Ron DeSantis had been very involved with endorsing candidates for school board elections here in Florida.
Involved.
He was doing with school boards here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, what President Trump has been doing with people running for governors and Congress, all that around the country at the rallies. He flipped a whole bunch of Democrat woke school boards to Republicans. Well, this is the sixth one because he took the most liberal county in Florida, just removed 4 Democrats and replaced them with Republicans.
How many people are on the school board?
I don't know, but I think it should be probably
I would
50-50 now.
At least.
Yeah, it's got to be about 50-50 now.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about this thing with Gavin McInnes, okay? And we don't know yet as of now what exactly had happened, okay, because it's still up in the air.
He's one of the founders of
Proud Boys, the Proud Boys.
But he left, you said.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Now, Gavin McInnes was doing his live stream on Thursday night, and you guys can go online and find the video. I'm not going to play the audio here because the audio quality's
Where does he live stream on?
I'm not sure what platform he uses, but Gavin McInnes was doing his show on his live stream, and he gets up and he talked to some people, and it was implied that they were FBI and took him out and arrested him, and even though he didn't see it. And someone that worked on the show said that he was picked up by the FBI for something to do with January 6th, even though he was not there. And there's some reporting about this. There was even an article in Newsweek about it, but we have had no confirmation about this. And here is an article I was just reading a little while ago. And again, we don't know. But the headline of the article is Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes in federal custody. Gavin McInnes, the Proud Boys and Vice founder, largely credited with inventing hipster douchebagism, they write, suddenly disappeared from his Get Off My Lawn podcast Thursday evening after off-screen unwelcome visitors entered his Bronx studio and interrupted the live broadcast. While many crack internet sleuths believe it's a staged bit by McInnes, who is accused by his detractors of being a right-wing racist extremist, friends of his show and his censored.tv network says he was taken away by members of law enforcement, most likely federal, and that he's been in custody ever since. The timing certainly had a theatrical feel to it. And here's just I'm not going to read through the whole thing that happened, but I'll throw that out to you guys. I don't know. There's not enough information to know. But it seems strange to me that here we are actually a couple days. This happened on Thursday. It's the weekend. It's a couple days later. I think if it were true, we would have some more information. But I'm hoping by Monday we'll know. Let me tell you, if he did it as a stunt, it's going to be devastating to him.
No, I can't imagine that'd be a pretty stupid stunt to do.
You never know. You never know. I would say right now it's 50-50. It's 50-50. I'm not going to say if it is or not because I don't think any of us know. I don't follow Gavin McInnes anymore too much. I hear about him every once in a while, but I don't follow him like I used to. And I don't dislike him. I have no issues or beef with him. I
just
think
kind of indifferent.
Yeah, but he is funny. He's funny. He's a comedian.
Even heard him talk. I've heard of his name, but I don't really know anything about him.
Yeah,
I didn't even know he had a podcast.
Oh yeah. I have not listened to it in a long time. Okay, but if any of you out there have any thoughts or ideas on, what that's about, let us know if you believe him or not in the comments. I don't know. It looked kind of strange to me. It just didn't. If somebody comes in like that's like a cop or federal agents, they don't care if you're live streaming your podcast. Mm-hmm. It's no big deal. I have seen situations years ago where things like this have happened to people. I know of one radio talk show host many years ago, about 25, 30 years ago, was actually removed from his show during the show by Secret Service.
Was he saying something?
I'm not going to get into it, but there was somebody, they were saying some things.
Okay, and so there was something said that warranted that.
Not on that particular show, but previously, and the Secret Service came during the show and took them off the air. So, and they didn't
so maybe it happened.
So it could happen.
Yeah.
It could happen. But I don't know about Gavin McInnes. The only reason I'm suspicious of it at all, I'm going to say it's 50-50 right now, is I haven't really heard or thought of him in a couple of years. Yeah. And it does fit
now
in.
He's all over
now
the
everyone's
news.
Talking about him. So that's the only reason I say
maybe
that it might be.
He was jealous that the FBI wasn't going after him.
I don't know.
And everybody else.
I don't know.
He's like, wait a minute, what about me?
I don't know who would be jealous of that.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Maybe Roger Stone. But other than that, I can't imagine. Now, this story, I read this. This is a kind of a funny thing. I saw this on The Blaze, and it's about Ben Shapiro, okay? And, Ben Shapiro is a very controversial figure in conservative circles. I only know one person who's a conservative that likes Ben Shapiro. Every conservative I know cannot stand Ben Shapiro. I don't listen to him anymore. I find him annoying. He talks way too fast. Yeah. He talks like an auctioneer.
Well, he has an annoying voice too.
He does. And I'm really not a...
He sounds like a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah.
He doesn't sound like his voice ever changed.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
the expression for that,
puberty.
He sounds like his balls haven't dropped.
Exactly.
Is what people say.
I was going to say that, but it wouldn't be very ladylike.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of his, and he's a never Trumper, and that probably has a lot to do with it.
Who's the one person that likes him?
I don't want to embarrass them. It's somebody I know, and I don't want to embarrass them.
Tell me off there.
Yeah, I don't want to embarrass them because I
know it's not me.
No, I've talked to them about this before. I'm like, do you really listen to his show? He's really annoying. He's a never Trumper. Yeah. He believed that Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels, Ben Shapiro. When President Trump was running in the first election, he wrote a column titled "Ben Shapiro did why I will never vote for Donald Trump." So so that certainly does make me not like him. On top of the fact that he talks like an auctioneer is annoying. Yeah. But anyway, listen to this. This is in The Blaze. Organizers of a podcast conference in Dallas drew backlash Thursday after they took responsibility for harm caused by Daily Wire podcast host Ben Shapiro's presence at the conference. Podcast Movement, a major annual conference for the podcast industry, issued an apology after attendees complained Ben Shapiro was spotted at the event near the Daily Wire booth. The Daily Wire sponsored the conference, and Shapiro, host of the Ben Shapiro Show podcast, was seen pictured walking around the expo area. As a trans person, as someone with a uterus, this does not make me feel welcome, one attendee said. This does not make me feel safe. One of the conference attendees posted on Twitter after sharing a picture of Shapiro standing by the Daily Wire booth. In response to the complaints received by the podcast movement, there were several tweets were issued apologizing that Shapiro was permitted to attend, and it goes on and on. What I don't know, and the reason I share this story, because it goes into the Gavin McInnes story. Is Ben Shapiro really hated by so what? A couple of people tweeted something, and one, as a trans person, I feel unsafe and unwelcome. Is Ben Shapiro, I understand I don't like him, and I'm annoyed by him. And I know a lot of you don't like him and are annoyed by him too, with the voice and all of that. Forgetting about even the never Trumperism too, but you guys know he's annoying. Do people really hate Ben Shapiro that much? Or does Ben Shapiro set up this as kind of like a publicity stunt like Gavin McInnes may have done on his show on Thursday night?
Is Ben Shapiro controversial enough to trigger the left like this. I don't think so. I think he.
Yeah.
I never know where he stands on anything. He kind of walks that fine line.
He's conservative. He has conservative positions.
Yeah, but he says a lot of general things. He's very general in his discussion.
He doesn't get deep.
He doesn't get deep. He's kind of like, you know what I mean? He just scratches the surface on a lot of topics, and I think he talks so fast because he doesn't want you to hear everything he's saying, or he doesn't want you to catch on.
Well, I don't know.
Well, but I don't think he's not like a Charlie Kirk. To me, Charlie Kirk really triggers those college kids.
And
but Ben Shapiro, I don't think they care.
No, I just can't imagine that people are really, he's really not offensive. He's annoying, not offensive. Yeah.
He doesn't say anything.
It just seems
that is so controversial and triggering where you would elicit a response. Be like, well, okay, go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, and when you see this trans person that tweeted something, who cares? Like, I remember when Rush Limbaugh first.
He's no Rush Limbaugh.
No. Oh God, no. No, please. I'm not comparing him to Rush Limbaugh.
No, not even close.
But when Rush Limbaugh first became nationally famous, there were people that had meltdowns over it. Okay,
yeah.
But he was controversial and good. Ben Shapiro, I know he likes to go to college campuses and debate children. And I've seen the videos and I've seen them. Okay. Sometimes they're interesting and funny and all that. But I just don't see him as someone that people are like, we can't have him around. He's just so terrible. He's just too,
No. He's not a Milo Yiannopoulos or a Charlie Kirk type or somebody who's really super controversial where they say things or a Candace Owens type.
Well, Candace Owens.
She triggers the left
It's not only that Candace Owens is good, but what triggers the left about Candace Owens is that she's black, she's good looking, and she's conservative.
And a woman.
Ben Shapiro, there's nothing about him that's interesting. No. There's nothing about Ben Shapiro that would attract a I know
what you're saying. I
was at that Trump event here in South Florida a few months ago where Candace Owens spoke at. And I was in shock. They had a thing where you could pay to take photographs with some of the celebrity conservatives like Don Jr. and Candace Owens. And there were a whole bunch of people there. Sarah Huckabee. You couldn't take pictures with Donald Trump, but you could with Don Jr., Kim Guilfoyle, Sarah Huckabee. There were a whole bunch of others, including Candace Owens. And I saw when they announced, okay, if you have paid to take your photograph with Candace Owens, line up over here, the whole arena emptied out. I could not believe how many people lined up.
Yeah.
Candace Owens had more people who paid to take pictures with her than all the other people combined, including Don Jr.
Now, people like her a lot.
I don't think if Ben Shapiro was there taking pictures, nearly as many people would have. It's just he's not controversial to me. I don't know. You guys let us know what you think.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I just don't think I don't think he excites anybody either way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't think he excites either side. I think he's just kind of a very boring,
states the obvious.
He gets on talk shows.
Yeah.
And
states the obvious. Now, if you would like to support the podcast and all of the content that we bring to you here, become a Patreon supporter. If you become a Patreon supporter, there are some perks to becoming a Patreon supporter. All Patreon supporters get commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode, right? And it's uploaded on the it's uploaded on the Patreon page, okay? And Kathy also does a lot of extra things up there for Patreon supporters. You've made like wallpapers and things for people's cell phones and a lot of things. Kathy and I, on occasion, will do a Patreon-only podcast episode where only Patreon supporters will get to hear that podcast episode.
And I got to tell you, Brian works so hard. Today it is 7:15 on Saturday.
Oh, yes.
On Saturday. We're recording this. He literally has not eaten today.
I have not.
He's had is a piece of bread. I walk out this morning.
It's true, and water.
And he's drinking Fiji water and he's eating a piece of bread. And I'm like, you're literally eating bread and water for breakfast. I'm like, we have food in the fridge. Yeah. We have eggs.
Well, I didn't have time to eat.
You didn't even toast the bread. You just get plain bread.
No butter.
No butter. Really weird. He's been working all day and you have not eaten since that piece of bread this morning.
No,
I guess I better cook you something.
I guess. I don't know. And I've been up since about 4:30 in the morning.
I know. I mean,
it's like 7:15
you just
at night
lose
now.
yourself in your work.
Well,
I worry about it a little bit, but
that's
you
the way
do
it
work
is.
a lot.
That's
for
the way
sure.
it is. And I'm a little loopy right now, to tell you the truth.
I guess I'll go
It's been a long day.
Fix you something.
It's been a long day.
Oh, my goodness.
But, But if you become a Patreon supporter, not only are you supporting the podcast here with Kathy and myself, you're supporting all the content I bring you, which includes my YouTube channel and all the work I do connected with that and everything else I do. And if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in this episode description in every podcast episode. And you click on that link, it'll walk you through on how to become a Patreon supporter. And our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you shout out on each and every episode. And our top Patreon supporters also have their first names listed in the description of every podcast episode. So the names you will hear now are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, Gary, ETW, Chuck, D, Pamela, Rick, Nick, Wesley, and LePaul. These are our top Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. And again, the Patreon link is in the episode description. The direct website address for that, by the way, is patreon.com/Real Brian Craig Show. Patreon.com/Real Brian Craig Show. All right, everyone, we're out of time for today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. We'll talk to you next time.
Neon is hot, and neon signs are perfect for your home, office, business, or to celebrate an event. Mastery Craft, that's all one word, Mastery, on Etsy.com, sell amazing neon signs at great prices. They have pre-made and custom signs that are perfect for all rooms and every occasion. Right now, receive a 25% discount on existing signs. Enjoy 40% off personalized designs. These are handmade neon signs with a nice, clean, professional look. They're easy to install and ready to go. If you want to bring a cool look to any space, get your neon sign from Mastery Craft. That's all one word, Mastery, on Etsy.com.